ティアラがお送りするテクザ。
Welcome to a top worst NES conversions list, and we begin our list with the conversion of Thexder onto the Amiga.
Warning, intruder. ティアラがお送りするテクザ。
Thexder is a great game. It was released ages ago for the PC 8000 machine, which was basically only released in Japan, and the MSX managed to get a conversion, as did the NES and other NEC platforms and other three-letter companies. But finally we got one on the Amiga. You can see the colour palette is virtually the same as the original game, and unfortunately they've lost something in the speed translation. You have to really inch forwards in this game. I've got tremendously far with this conversion, but unfortunately not on this try, and you can pull back on the controller to switch into a jet plane. Unfortunately that thing is uncontrollable on the Amiga version. Thexder reminds me of Turrican and Turrican 2, miles before its time, and you can see that we can also top up our energy as well by collecting and destroying certain things, and these are force field barriers that we can destroy using our laser. Even though this version runs very quickly, even on a basic Amiga 500, I'd say Thexder is an amazing game, come what may. Diving down into a game which isn't so amazing, this is Superman the Man of Steel, and this was released by Subway Software, which gives you an idea of the quality of this game. To begin with, we are given a comic animation of Superman flying out of the window. Not that that wouldn't be noticeable in a high-rise apartment block known as the Daily Planet. And yes, by pressing fire we can skip through. Oh no, it's Superman! Yes, the game! Maybe they've played the game before. Well, let's press that fire button and check this out. Unfortunately, we cannot use the joystick. This is a mouse control game, and by pressing the right mouse button we can change between our infinite laser strength beaming out of our eyes and also the wind power beaming out of our mouth. As we know, Superman is indestructible, he's got infinite superpowers, and so when you run out of beam energy and when you run out of power you'll die, and that's the entire Earth Defense Force knocked out because Superman is now dead. Moving on, this is Blades of Steel. This is a Konami game, so hopefully we should be in for a bit better quality. And Blades of Steel was also a hit on the NES. This is a conversion of that. Let's set up a local match between me and an idiot computer player, and let's see how much that wipes me out. You can see the introduction, but that is not part of the game because first of all it has to cut to a cutscene, and the cutscene basically tells us where we are and what we are doing.
Face off!
As the game begins, the characters will flash to denote which character we are controlling and which one the computer is controlling, and in a tight skirmish that is mind-blowing to say the least. But if you can manage to spread the players out like this, you can get half a chance on goal, and the aim of course is to send the puck into the net at high speed. The computer control player isn't great by any stakes and can make mistakes, and it is an idiot, but so are we, and passing in this game is the only thing that I've managed to do so far. Because the controls are slightly broken, I'm going to walk straight in. Yet no, I did not score a goal in that particular case, and now the enemies have got that puck. game is slightly on the unplayable side and slightly on the broken side. You can see a very angry guy there, the referee dashing off, and you can see another scoreboard which breaks up the action.
Face off!
You can see the referee's wearing something like a Donald Trump wig, and it doesn't help that the playability in this game isn't as good as it was on the NES. The animation isn't great either, but this is playing on an NTSC machine, as are all the games that we're playing in this review, so hopefully you get a little bit more speed out of it. Of course, most of the games released on the NES were NTSC conversions, but this is definitely a PAL game, even though it begins with an NTSC compatible screen. This is Cliffhanger, and if you don't run this in PAL, then the bottom half of the screen will be cut off and you'll be unable to see your stats. If you press fire very quickly, the cutscenes almost look like a good animation, but they aren't, and so let's venture into that game itself. First thing to watch out for is Killer Snow, and of course if Killer Snow lands on our heads we'll be defeated and a huge chunk of our energy will be wiped away. Having defeated the Killer Snow, we can then punch out wolves with a single punch, and a single kick also gets rid of birds and all the other wildlife on that level. Many protected species are on the way out, and that includes us because we are unable to make the very first jump. If we jump right on the edge like this, unfortunately he does not make that jump. So that's a wasted opportunity to get further in the very first level of this game, and I have played the Game Boy version and I do respect the Game Boy version, and I've actually got quite far with it. Unfortunately I can't get anywhere with the Amiga version simply because of this very first jump, and it defies belief, but it is not possible to jump even from the very edge, and of course lethal spikes on the very first level defeats players left and right. Bang! Let's get rid of that eagle. Let's jump right from the very edge, and no, we cannot make it. Taking a look at that in very slow motion, you can see we're almost above it, we are directly above it, we are directly on it, we are absolutely on it, and now unfortunately we are not on it. No, we have gone past it. So we are now on to the next game. This is Home Alone, and this is the conversion of Home Alone, you can see, and of course this was released on the NES. This is 20th Century Fox and Manly Associates, so it's got to be a good game. You can see digitized images flourishing the introduction, and of course you can see some titles and some music as well. In Home Alone we play as Kevin, and we have the entire house to ourselves, and that doesn't mean that we can hang around smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. No, what it actually means is we have to collect up all our toys. That's definitely not what we want to do, but in this game we have to do that, and we have to spread them liberally around the entire house, just like your mother told you not to do in the first place. So this encourages the player to liberally spread those things out. You can see by pushing up and pressing fire it does nothing. What we have to do is press the F keys, and by pressing the F keys we can pick things up. We can also press another F key to drop things off as well. Let's struggle along with that and see if we can pick up our first item, which is a robot toy. Let's press that F key, let's see if it does anything. There it is, it's a droid. And we can drop it here for exactly the right reason, but we won't do that. Instead, we'll carry on running through this endless complex, which is a house. And I don't know about your house, but my house is 3 rooms in size, and this thing is an absolute mansion. We can drop the toys here, hoping that the guys will nip into the bathroom for a quick leak, and on the way out they'll kick over a droid which will somehow destroy them. In the meantime, we have spiders and other things that we can collect. Not quite sure what that is. It looks like an inflatable foot pump. And speeding this footage up, hopefully throughout this entire mansion, we can collect other random objects by jumping up onto those ledges, and then we can throw those things onto the floor. There are at least 4 levels of this house, including the road and the attic, and on the top level, the attic contains even more junk that we have to liberally spread around that house. And as you get far in the game and collect all these useless items up, you suddenly realise that this game is absolutely boring, and suddenly waiting for the enemies to appear, being the most exciting point of the game, means that this thing plays like an absolute boring waste of time. Cutting back to that footage and moving back into real time, you can see that we're messing around in the kitchen, collecting fire hydrants and throwing those around, and as you can see, we're trying to lay traps onto light switches and sockets. What all good kids should do, throw a saucepan on there, and then that should hopefully blow up. And so this game is tedious and boring in the worst possible way. On hopefully to something more of quality. Of course, this is Battletoads, which was again released on the NES and converted to the Amiga. Battletoads begins with a space intro, and I'm playing this on an NTSC Triple-O machine, so that's why it's playing just a little bit quicker. You can see this animation was probably not included on any other version, and you can see some animation through the cutscenes as well. See some werewolves there. They don't remind us at all of the Turtles or Kerrang, Bebop, Rocksteady or any of those henchmen. Yes, this is another. Look at those graphics, look at those fonts there. You can see the Battletoads. So let's waste no more time, let's press that fire button and we can select music only or sound effects only or 2 players only in this only game. So let's press that fire button and check out the 1 player only experience as we dive on into this legend. On the Amiga version of Battletoads, played on NTSC, you can see it plays at a good speed and it has relatively good controls and we can run around there pretty quickly. And by pressing fire at just the right moment, we can destroy those enemies. In this case, we're getting a pole, and so just like the Ninja Turtles, we'll get ourselves a pole that we can lob around and dash against those enemies. Unfortunately, this game isn't particularly my best playthrough, and you can see I'm getting my ass kicked already. And yes, we can bash that away for a bit more score. So this time we can rush through those levels with very smooth scrolling, and of course it maintains some elements of the gameplay from the NES version. Unfortunately, the controls seem to be slightly laggy even with this slight speed up, and seemingly we cannot hit the easiest enemies on level 1. I have managed to get further in this game. I've definitely got up to the turbo tunnel, and you can imagine how quick that is played on an NTSC Amiga. And even on the PAL experience it was quick enough. But somehow luck is against me on this particular playthrough, because over luck or judgment I seem to not be able to get much further with it. And totally bogus, dude. It even steals some elements from other films in the credits and in the high score table. And totally heinous, dude. Unfortunately, this is not Bill and Ted's. This is just Bill billing around, tedding his way around these idiotic levels. And if I'm making a meal of this and making it look difficult, it's because I'm struggling with this, and usually I can get much further with it. And for some reason, these Battletoads aren't really in the mood for battle today, and hammering people with a huge fist like this as they dive bombers isn't particularly the most friendly way. So let's leap, leap, leap over this waterfall and see if we can find some better gameplay on the other side. And unfortunately not, we're still managing to get kicked by that dive bomber, and he'll pick us up and lob us off the scenery if we're not careful, and that's just another quirk of this game. Yes, you can die by falling off the ledge. So let's quickly move on to something else. Yes, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, and that begins with an arcade game sequence. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they couldn't use the copyright music, so they didn't bother putting it in the game. But apart from that, we get the game, and this is played on NTSC, so it's full screen and as fast as it can go on an Amiga. Let's check this out. It's a fire pit, and we have to get April out according to that repetitive message. This is a faithful conversion of the arcade game and of course the NES conversion, and it plays relatively smoothly on NTSC. And you can see the boulders. I'm making a meal of those virtual 3D boulders at the moment, but if you manage to jump over them and actually time them, then they stop appearing after a bit. You can see everything is supposed to be in here from the arcade original, and unlike virtually every single game on this list from now on, this has arcade original graphics and arcade original gameplay. If you're quick and you choose the right turtle, we can kick the ass of the enemies. You can see they are flying away. And so let's butcher our way through this level against endless, faceless enemies. See April in the back corner, and April, May, June and July are all on this game, and it doesn't really matter who you're supposed to save because it's an endless repeated slash 'em up. And hopefully with this thing, let's move on to another bonus level. What's that? Rocksteady. Let's kick that thing because that thing's got a gun and we only have a short reach pole, so the best thing to do is to jump over that thing and hopefully dive bomb it from the ceiling. And unfortunately that's not really working, but we do have lots of continues in the game. You can see even on this section the fire hydrant does work, and we do get a cameo of Shredder in the background as well, although not quite as good as the arcade version. It's quite laughable, but we still get that cameo nonetheless. We can pick up things and throw things around and bash enemies' heads in, and just like Dragon Ninja, Bad Dudes v Dragon Ninja, we can climb up onto higher ascents, and it doesn't say pizza power because they couldn't fit the samples into memory, and they couldn't fit anything else sample-wise from the arcade, but what we do get is a very limited range of sound effects and some catchy music, but only on the title screen. Cowabunga, dude! Totally heinous! Yeah, totally heinous game, it is! Moving on to the UK version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And this is played on an NTSC machine, so it will be moving slightly more quickly. lots of intros, and you can see animation as well during the cutscene. Cowabunga, dude! Pizza, dude! Time for pizza! Let's go and rampage our way around an entire city and avoid the pedestrians as much as possible. In this version of the game, we can avoid all of the first scenarios and jump into the last one. This gives us a shortcut to the town itself. We can also select our hero at any point by pressing the enter key, and Donatello, let's select Donatello for this. And we can push up and we can press fire to dispatch those enemies. The great thing about this game is we can simply push up to jump, we don't have to press the button, and that means jumping in this game is an absolute dog. We're fighting Bebop and Rocksteady again, and all we need to do is to dispatch that guy and they'll run off with April, so let's run after them. And we can also explore these houses as well for a bit more bonus and a bit more score. But because our energy is halfway down, let's try to get that pizza, dude! And so let's use this guy. We can also change guys at this point if we want to make life easier, but because this guy has the pole, for my money, he's the best guy to use in the entire game. Unfortunately, he has an energy, so you have to keep topping that up. And that means that you'll have to keep exploring, and when you're not using that guy, it's best to use someone else so they take the damage instead. Unfortunately, it's pretty difficult with any other character I've found playing this game, and check out this, you can't even destroy the guy. And climbing up and downstairs, that's how you climb up and downstairs apparently. If you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, you go all the way up and down those ladders. So let's skip forward in this playthrough. You can see pulling up means that we can escape any environment, and this game is an absolute joy to play compared to the other version, which I'll show you in a minute. And yet again, we're fighting another enemy. He's got a gun, and this time all we need to do is to jump over him, and of course we need to save April, who is in the corner, who incessantly gets caught by the same bad guys every week. We also have some special weapons that you can see in the corner, and not that I'll be using any of those special weapons during this play of the game. And yes, I did manage to get further in the game, much further than I'm actually showing you in this footage, but even though this thing has got relatively crap graphics, it's still got a good level of gameplay, and pushing up means that we can simply jump over those gaps, and we don't have to walk over it. Look at that, we can simply push up and get through that gap. We don't have to walk over it. This is the Amiga version, you can't walk over it, you have to push up, you have to jump out and skip the entire level. And that's what everybody did on this game. After that, you get even more sections where we can scamper underground, and the underwater sections where we can ransack different levels of technology and shut off shields and things like that, and hopefully we can get through to the end of the game. You can see we're scampering around, that's quite comical as we're doing that, and we also have to mate with different panels, and that will shut them off completely. If you haven't seen the rest, then this is not the best. This is the Ultra Games version. This is the American version, played on NTSC full screen, and so let's see how bad the Americans made a butcher of it. You can see unlimited softwaring, but this was not created by DSi, so you can't expect much from it. Chris Hatley there worked also with DSi, and look at the quality of the superb animation on the introduction sequence. We get a life-size model of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we also get their name printed up on that screen. got a bow, even though it's not a bow and arrow, it's a staff, but whatever you call that thing, they are the turtles, and so we are ready, hopefully. And look at that, quality again, animation on the Amiga version. You cannot get better than that on any version of this game. Look at those high score tables, it's smooth. So let's press fire, let's check out this game. Let's switch characters straight away and let's choose a decent one so that we can stand half a chance or at least a quarter of it playing this game. And yes, we cannot avoid the first thing, we have to fall down it, and having done so we can collect some pizza, and then all we need to do is climb that ladder again and escape this booby trap, because we don't want to be losing any energy at this point. Unfortunately for this game we cannot simply push up. To jump we have to press that fire button, and that makes life slightly more difficult, as you're going to see. If you thought the UK version played in NTSC Super Speed mode was a decent game, then this definitely isn't, and pressing fire and holding down fire, attempting to jump in this thing is an impossible task, and you have to pull in the directions diagonal up and down if you want to use your weapon. That's unwieldy at the best of times, and to my mind the controls are broken. Luckily with the WHD and the emulator you can switch those controls around, but unfortunately if you land in the wrong place like this, April will swallow you to death and that's game over. Of course, on the Amiga and on the NES we have Ikari Warriors, and we also have the sequel to Ikari Warriors, which is Victory Road. And Ikari Warriors is too good for this compilation, but we did get Victory Road, so you will see the quality of this super conversion. In this game we take control of yet another Slash Stallone ripoff as we launch our rocket launcher towards some green imps, it looks like, with a very annoying face scrolling between them, so we can't actually see where we are going. Momentarily that thing will disappear, and unfortunately for us we are still playing this game. We can collect some power-ups as well, including a blow-up thing which blows up things on the screen, and look at that, we also have a sword, and unfortunately I collected that and died, unfortunately for me, but we can play with that, and now we have a magic sword that fires bullets out of it, just like every sword in history fires bullets out of it, and that means we can progress. Look at that, there's a suit of armour on the floor, that means we can transform into Robocop. Unfortunately that Robocop didn't last very long, and now unfortunately we're back playing that game again, and it looks like we've recovered from the earthquake, and now we've just got one green imp who bites our rear end or our lower regions, and then it's game over. This isn't anywhere near as good as the worst scrolling games, even for the fact that Leatherneck is appalling and also License to Kill, but this thing manages to scrape the bottom of the barrel, but it's certainly not the bottom, as we shall see. Because between here and there we have Bionic Commando. Bionic Commando is a superb arcade classic which was converted to all the computers under the sun. It got a monumental conversion on the C64 and on the NES, so let's check out the 16-bit conversion. As you can see, the main part of the scrolling has been maintained by the fact that you have to move across the edge of the screen to get to scroll and do anything, and having done so we can finally reach that ledge and get out. And so this game does play tricks on us from time to time, and the first one, of course, it's the first leap across the first gap. And we'll have to swing across this first gap just like the arcade version, and on this version we have to inch our way forward using the grappling hook, and eventually that thing will scroll enough so grab whatever it is that we're supposed to be grabbing onto, and having grabbed onto that it's so easy to mess that up, and the enemies in this game aren't too hard that they take 10 shots to kill. No, that would be impossible, and if you mistime that you can fall into an infinitely falling pit. And in this game, you would think that now that we've got the screen to scroll, it would be much easier from now on, but unfortunately not, because we've still got to deal with the screen scrolling aspect, which will centralise itself and reset just as we get to the same point. Let's run away from those enemies and try to find a safer route through this level. It's not particularly easy, and it's definitely luck over judgment, because the controls are delayed and so are the firing, so is the scrolling, and you could be scrolling away waiting for the screen to scroll whilst the enemies kick you right in the chest. And it's very easy to do in that game because it's very frustrating, not like any of the other conversions, and this surely has to rank up there amongst the top worst NES conversions of all time. Despite everything, despite the laggy controls and the screen scrolling, it still doesn't rank amongst the top worst NES conversions on the Amiga, so for that let's step aside and welcome another game. This is Altered Beast! Altered Beast! And this apparently rips off some Greek mythology and some shape changing as well. We can change into a werewolf, not that we'll get that far in this particular playthrough. It was converted apparently by Activision, which is an American company, so we're going to play this in NTSC, which hopefully plays this just a little bit quicker. Apparently my computer has some problems with that flashing intro, but apart from that you can see the gameplay itself is relatively Altered Beast, except for the gameplay is relatively broken at the same time. We can pull off an amazing series of maneuvers, including low kick and punch and top kick as well, and those three combined make sure that we can dispatch any of the enemies on this first level. Power up. Basically, this game has got some scrolling, but it doesn't have any parallax scrolling, neither does it have any good graphics or any good playability, any good sound or any good music. So, with those things off the table, this thing is a mere shadow of the game that it should have been, and the arcade original is a mocking, laughing joke compared to this version, and this version is definitely mocking, laughing and a joke all of itself. In any other beat-em-up, you might look forward to knocking out all of these enemies, but not in this one, and even the above blast that I'm trying to do at the moment isn't knocking out those enemies, and if we destroy those columns we might even get a power-up, and it seems a pity that the easiest thing to do is to lie on our backs and kick upwards, and that seems to be the safest way to defeat most of the enemies on this first level. Not that I've ever got off this first level, because I've usually switched the game off long before I've got to the end of it. If you bought this back in the day and paid full price for this, then you'll be instantly put off by the controls and the gameplay, and this is even worse than Rolling Thunder that we got on the Amiga. Let's move on to Castlevania! And yes, we haven't quite reached the bottom of the barrel quite yet. The high-class NES conversion, we've got Castlevania! Let's press that fire button and check out that music. We can start a new game or even continue a save game from this point. This is Simon on his quest. This is Castlevania on the Amiga, and The best programmers in the world were in charge of this. As you can see, the characters are much larger and all the items are much larger, and of course the trees are a little more better defined, and of course the fire as well. But apart from that, it's more or less NES conversion because everything is big, bold and blocky, and usually the colour scheme is limited to 16 colours in this case. The very first problem is turning around to kill those enemies, and because the controls are so laggy in this game, it takes forever to pull out our whip, and you have to press fire and jump at a correct time, otherwise you will not jump or press fire anytime and you will not be able to collect those bonuses that you can collect on the ground level. You can see the graphics are an absolute shambles, and so is the gameplay. The scrolling is just about up to par, and yes, it's quite jerky at the same time, and this game is an absolute complete rip-off of the Castlevania series. Watched the Angry Video Nerd all this time. I think I know which way to go by now. It's definitely up here. Unfortunately, we don't have the NES music because even though the Amiga had 4-channel music stereo sound, we don't get any of it. On this version, we get Amiga soundtrack, and you can see the hardest level in the game is the first level because it's so boring. We can, if we want to, outrun those enemies, and you can also collect a bonus before you destroy the end of first level boss. Unfortunately, the second level isn't much better. We do get a map, but it's pretty basic, and the second level we would hope to at least get the zany music, but we don't. And what we do get is some pretty shoddy gameplay and something that puts the player off instantly as soon as they load this up. And apparently this is supposed to be one of the legendary games in history, but unfortunately not the Amiga version. So let's use our 16-bit CPU power and move on to another game. This is Double Dragon 2! Double Dragon 2 The Revenge is one better than Double Dragon 1, which is an appalling conversion on the Amiga. And so if you thought that Double Dragon 1 was worse enough, then this one just about manages to cap it. It begins with a relentless, endless scrolling introduction sequence which provides all the callers' names, but also a long lengthy story which you really want to skip because it's so long and boring, and I'm not about to even begin to narrate that in this particular playthrough. So let's fast forward through that legendary story, and you can of course pause the action if you want to read that complete nonsense. This time there is no stopping them, they will finish that job. Well, hopefully they'll finish the job of programming this game one of these days, because what we ended up with, at least we've got the 16 colours, but unfortunately the gameplay is taking a back seat. You can see Thunderblade, the arcade version, which was again a legendary piss-poor rip-off and a completely dire version on the Amiga, but what we do have is this version. This is the sequel to Double Dragon, so you'd expect it to be a lot better. They did have an excuse for the original, that it was diabolical, but they don't have an excuse for this version, and even though on the surface it might look like an incredible beat-em-up, this is not Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. In fact, I'm struggling to even pick up that chain which is on the floor. Scrolling is mostly there, but it seems still a little bit laggy and things are flashing on the screen. Unfortunately, you can see one of the main enemies has no trouble at all beating us to the ground, and even with the power of NTSC, I'm still going to fast forward this because it's still a clunky game to play. Even if you have the whip, you can destroy all of the enemies, and flying kick will get rid of that boss just like that. And it's still really boring to play, as you can see, and if you manage to get stuck on the top of the screen, you'll have to do it all over again. Finally, the enemy's dead, so let's waste even more time trying to pick up that chain weapon again, and let's try to venture on through to somewhere near the end of the very first level of this game. You can see we've got identical enemies, and even the bosses, even though they are well drawn and well defined, it looks like a cartoon, and even perhaps the Commodore 64 version was more playable than this, so you can see the big sprites do not give away the fact that the gameplay is a disaster, and yes, it does have everything in there from all the other conversions, all the posters on the wall, and you can see its version of 3D, well 2.5D is a joke, and sometimes the enemies get confused by that 3D as well. Let's move on, and climbing up the wall, you can see I can climb up the wall, but if you want to climb down the wall again, you can climb down the wall from the middle of the platform, so it looks like he's floating right on top of it, and that's a really diabolical way to climb down ladders in the game. Let's try to defeat that 3D aspect again. We've already got rid of the monsters, and now the 3D, we're actually stuck, so we've no idea where to go, and if we fall off the edge of this thing, we'll simply lose a life. Choosing not to continue with this monumental mess, let's move on to another game. Yes, if you thought this was definitely the bottom of that barrel, think again, because the bravest fighters in this case are not rewarded by a great firework display, because we are going to move on to the next game in this list. If you thought 50 frames per second smooth scrolling and animation were a minimum requirement, think again, because this is our next game. This is more on the lines of a travesty than the one before, if that was even possible, and I wonder which game this is. See a phenomenally boring intro, and I don't think you can skip the intro on the Amiga version, even though I'm pressing joystick 5 like crazy. Eventually that intro will spit out a few words, so let's fast forward through that. And according to this, Draco, or whatever that's called, has been defeated, just as I thought. What about this ninja guy? Well, he knows nothing yet. Good. Continue the plan. We shall do. What shall we do about this guy, sire? Nothing. Nothing, just leave him where he is. He's no further threat to us. No further, we don't need him anymore, at least for now. Let's follow the plan exactly, and let's hope that it doesn't beat us up further on down this mission. Act 1, Ninja Gaiden 2! And yes, it's Ninja Gaiden 2! Ninja Gaiden 2 is a crap game, and as you can see, the controls are really rubbish, as are the animations, and the graphics, and the music, and the playability, and if you played this and bought this for 25 quid, you would feel ripped off at this point. The Ninja Gaiden series was introduced with a version of a game called Shadow Warriors, released on the Amiga, and that was released as Ninja Gaiden 1 on all the other platforms. We did get Shadow Warriors. It is a massive cut above this game. It is at least graphically pleasing and modicumly and slightly playable. This unfortunately is not anywhere near pleasing on any front. It is not anywhere near playable to any degree, and everything that you select slows the frame rate down, and when more baddies appear on the screen, everything becomes even more jerky, and it's no easier even with two guys on that screen. This is the absolute epitome of Amiga conversions. It has no redeeming features whatsoever, it has no playability whatsoever, it has no longevity, it has no great scores, and I'm not sure if any magazines reviewed this. If they did, they would throw it directly in the trash. And yes, eventually we can use those bonus weapons, but unfortunately you can't survive a fall, and so if you fall down one of these pits, you can't necessarily grab onto the side of the building and continue. Not that you want to do that anyway, because after 2 seconds playing this game, look at that, 2 seconds playing it, you would imagine that you would switch it off immediately, and the hit detection as well as everything else is on the flaky side, so what I do is jump over everything, and having jumped over everything, it's slightly better. But look at that, you would think that I've grabbed the ladder there, but no, I cannot grab the ladder at the end of that level, making this an absolute joke. And even the character himself doesn't want to be on this level and hides in the corner. What a ridiculous piece of software that is, but not as bad by any stretch as our next game. Yes, it's Konami, and this is Super C! If you thought games couldn't get any worse, then you haven't seen Super C on the Amiga! This has got another monumental, highly jerky introduction sequence, and you can see some pretty flaky graphics. Again, music by Chris Hatlid, and created by Unlimited Software. Unlimited gameplay, unlimitedly bad graphics, unlimitedly bad story. Look at that, it looks like it's been scanned in by a 1 DPI scanner. Anybody can tell what they're actually saying, please write in now, and of course if you can decide why I'm playing this load of rubbish, write in now and tell me as well. Let's press that fire button and check it out. This is Super C! As you can see, this is the best graphics to ever appear on the Amiga. It has 25 levels of parallax scrolling. It has orchestral, sampled digital speech and sound. It has music, blow your mind by better than Chris Hulsbeck. It has scrolling as smooth as you wouldn't believe. It has huge size graphics, much huger than the NES version. It has monstrously huge playability and of course massive, immense, huge loud sound effects. Due to the one fire button controls, it's impossible to jump and shoot accurately at the same time, but due to the jumping in this game, it's impossible to do that accurately anyway. You can see things on multi-levels to us don't die instantly until we get onto the exact same level as them, and jumping in this game is rather hit and miss, as you can imagine, because you have to push up to jump and fire at the same time, so if you're already pressing fire, it does nothing. You can see the immaculate controls and the playability of this game haven't been ruined because it's an absolute abomination. It's been absolutely petrified, roasted in oil and excreted out into that world. I think that they developed this game over at least a 1 week period, and maybe they got time off for good behaviour, and unfortunately this game, you cannot play it under any circumstances. This is not a so bad that it's a good game. This is not a so terrible that it's a joke game. This is not a so bad that it's an absolute laugh to play it. It's an absolute travesty to gameplays and game players everywhere on this planet, to every system, on every single platform, every single console, everybody that calls themselves a lover of video games and a game player, everywhere on this entire planet and known solar system. This is shit. Thank you for viewing this pile of rubbish, and I hope to see you again with actual proper Amiga games at some point soon. Thank you. Oh yeah.